That's very good. That's very good. That's good enough. Okay, so 9 Russian soldiers have been sent home from Canada. Yeah, I said that. Yes, there are Russian soldiers in Canada. There's Chinese soldiers in Canada. There's all kinds of soldiers. Australian soldiers. There's Pakistani soldiers. There's American soldiers, British, you name it. Because we do, and we've been doing it for years. This is not conspiracy. This is something, you can find this on the military websites. What we do is training, cross-border training type of thing. Plus we do think of it like foreign exchange students. Hey, dog. So whenever you do see the kind of conspiracy that there are Russian soldiers in this country, that country, excuse me. I just ate a big sandwich. Well, it's true. Because it's true, right? Hey, goof. Big dog head. And the reason why it's true is because we do different training now. Some of these training might involve, one was being a translator, teaching Canadian troops Russian, I guess. And others, 2 other Russians were learning French and English. And the rest of the Russians, I forget what they were learning. This is all from the CBCs where I got this. Yeah, you're a pest today. Big fat butt. This is 92 pounds of dog here. Where you going? So anyway, bottom line is that they're being sent home over this Crimea situation in Ukraine, where the secessionist movement is they're going to have an election in like 10 days or something like that, on the 16th, I believe, and March. So in Russia right now, there's protests on, people saying, yeah, Crimea should join Russia. Now, Putin's still putting up his same kind of, oh, we're just letting these people self-determine, he's definitely forcing the hand. There's no question about that. Again, there's no good guys in this. The American EU, United Nations, and the IMF and all of them have really brought all this on, because the way they did regime change, my dog wants outside, so they did regime change, which made Putin pull out his master plan. They provoked a supervillain is what they did. And Putin, there's no way I'd want to ever live under that kind of a rule. It'd be a tough place to live, that's for sure. Although there's certain things I may agree with the man on principle on some stuff, but I definitely wouldn't want to live in the world of Vladimir Putin. Even being one of his friends would be dangerous. So with that said, Ukraine, again, this is all about, everything you see on the media is pretty much cut and dry. It's between the United States and the Russians is what this whole thing is about. And and if you're American watching this, you got to say, with the $17 trillion deficit, this is what Obama's focusing on, and now there's 30,000 troops. Here's the thing about all this troop stuff. Yes, there were a lot of troops in there that were already stationed there, and they became the defense forces. That's why they're not wearing badges. They're not wearing Ukrainian badges. They're not wearing Russian badges. Almost every standing military will have its identifier, somewhere on its shoulder, armband, or chest, breastplate or something like that, to say where they're from and what military it is. Because many militaries around the world use the same equipment, especially the NATO stuff. So you can't tell a Dutch soldier from, say, like a Canadian soldier or an American soldier. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, you know what I mean, or a German soldier or whatever. Canada and Germany. Geez, you want to see a very similar looking military? There you go. We don't have all the same equipment, but if you were to look at it without the armbands, you wouldn't be able to tell which, you'd have a hard time telling who came from where. And even with the Americans, it's like a lot of people can't tell the American soldiers from the Canadian soldiers because we're all dressed up in the same things. Is the point I'm making. So you need that armband. So these guys don't have any armbands. So a lot of them, yes, were probably at first within the country to begin with when all this stuff broke out. Then there was an adding of 2,000 or 6,000 troops. Putin denied that. Then, but I don't believe Putin on this one, and here's why: because there's too much. This is the thing in the day of social media. This whole surveillance grid is a double-edged sword. the cell phone that they can use, like this cell phone that I'm using, that they can use to spy on you, can also be turned around and used to record events. Therefore, it's a double-edged sword. And through social media, that's why freedom of speech must be protected at all costs. Think about it this way: how many government plans, have been foiled because of the internet? Particularly social media. And it's one of the fastest ways to rally around a cause. Give you an idea: the Syrian civil war started with a Facebook post. Yeah, let's go protest for equal rights. And then, of course, it got hijacked from there. And then Obama started sending guns to Al-Qaeda. Yeah. Now, this gets hijacked. It's a coup, counter-coup. There's a lot of points I want to talk on today. But it's a coup, counter-coup, counter-coup is what it is. And at this point, the coups are all done. Russia's clearly got the upper hand. They're not, sanctions don't mean anything to them. Putin's not wavering. He knows Obama's weak. He knows Obama's not really going to do anything. However, it doesn't mean, just because you might size up the leader and say, okay, I can walk all over this guy, doesn't mean the soldiers on the ground are, it just takes one guy to fire a shot, out of nervousness. And next thing you know, you've got yourself a major incident. One warship fires at another warship. Right now, the situation is still just as tense around Japan and China. It's just right now, we're dealing with a real flash in the pan incident. So I don't think it's going to go to a thermonuclear war because, there's clearly that, NATO's clearly, back down. The fact that they're just trying so hard to see if they could start diplomatic relations that kind of work. They like the IMF and all that, they can't walk away from the table now. They can't. They'll lose too much. And the Russians just keep taking and taking and taking. And they were manipulating is more than taking. So at this point, it's like, Russia has the upper hand, and it was all brought on by regime change. All's the IMF, even if they would have rigged the election, which is bad enough, to get their puppet in, kind of like they did in Egypt, they could have got him in, and chances are he would have stayed in, even though he would be, he's an IMF banker, ex-banker, once a bankster, always a bankster. And now you've got all these oligarchs that are running the show. This is all about ripping the resources. It doesn't matter if Russia rips the resources out of Ukraine or the EU rips the resources out of the Ukraine. And it's a place to dump bonds. It's a place to dump cash. And the American economy, China's dumping all its U.S. bonds. So is Japan, so is India, so is Pakistan, so is Iran. Well, Iran doesn't have any, but so is Russia. Russia's starting to do that. That's how they fight back. You want to wage economic warfare for us? Sure, you do the sanctions. We'll start dumping your bonds, and your dollar's going to crash. And that's what's going on. That's what they're not reporting on. And it is going on, just because you don't hear it on the mainstream media. If you haven't picked up by now, the mainstream media does very selective narrated news to, it's a one-story line, and it's a company line. They will not tell you, because if it was objective, they would have brought this up by now. They haven't even touched the idea of the NATO missile systems going in there. Now, if you haven't understood what Russia's doing, well, they're fighting a couple of different fronts here. What they're fighting for is to keep hold of the resources that they've already got control of. They're already fighting for their military bases to keep this, because strategically, if they give up the Black Sea Fleet, if they have to go home, where do they go? You know what I mean? And, if NATO missile systems that, get put in on the border of Russia, Russia becomes undefendable. And Putin has said this a year or so ago. NATO, he says, if they put in NATO missiles, they'll have to do preemptive strikes on them. That's not off the table. So all options are on the table when it comes to that. They will defend Russia to, so whether you like Russia or don't like Russia is not the question here. What I'm saying is that they've already, clearly demonstrated that when they say they're going to do something, they usually do it. Even when they say they're not doing something, they're still doing what you don't want them to do. So provoking them more, like right now, all we're doing is provoking them. Every time a sanction comes out, Putin advances. Now he's got 30,000 troops there. So so you can see how it escalates. F-15s have been scrambled to, I think, Slovakia, Poland, and Hungary. There's the observers, I guess they're military observers on the ground. We'll see how far they get. But I think at the end of the day, again, Russia's going to take this one. Why? Because there's no leadership. Now here in Canada, we are doing stuff here in Canada. Like, we're we're not really doing anything that's going to hurt the Russians at all. At the end of the day, they're willing to take the little bit of a flogging for, risk versus reward. Right now, Russia's got reward, reward, reward. They're not losing anything, and because of that, who loses out the most? The Ukrainian people. Why? Because now they have Russian occupation, and if they separate, which I'm pretty positive it's going to be like almost a unanimous. I've seen how the Russian parliament votes. I'm sure the people in Crimea probably know which way they're going to vote too. No one's going to vote against this because, well, there's 30,000 troops around us. Yeah, do you want to be the guy speaking out right now? I don't think so. You know what I mean? That's what happens when civilians are not allowed to own guns. That can challenge because there wouldn't be Russian occupation there had people been able to arm themselves in the first place. No, we're not even talking about this. We're talking about history. Going back. Now yes, it was a part of Russia years ago, and it was given there. So so it's kind of like playing Indian giver. We gave it to you, but now we're going to take it back. But what NATO wants, or not NATO, but what the IMF wants, is they want the area that Russia is occupying. That's the only part of the Ukraine. If it was the western part, they wouldn't care because there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Make no mistake, it is about resources. It is about stealing from the people. Government does this everywhere in the world. This is just really in your face. That's the only difference. Now, again, nothing on the mainstream media about the interviewing the actual people, what their plight was. We wanted less corruption. We wanted a better government. They weren't really asking for the IMF or probably most of them don't even understand what's going on there. They understand there was a regime change, but who are these people? What are they going to do for us? They don't understand that. Now, this idea that some people have made arguments to say, look, other countries have joined NATO and joined the EU and stuff like that, and their economies picked up from cutting from Russia, and that's true. But this is a bad time in history to do that. It's like this is the worst time in history for just about any country. Economically, it's like there's almost no country that's not suffering in some way. And it's all getting worse. I mean, Greece, Spain, Italy, Ireland, the UK, all the UK, and even in the United States. I mean, you might as well say the United States economy is dead. 175,000 jobs today, or this month or whatever. Yeah, but they don't talk about the about 2 million that they lost. And all these jobs. What are they? They're all government jobs. They don't count. They don't count. They just made the debt worse. Obama's increasing the debt. The spending limit. Oh, we have to. Why? Because the QE is going to have. The wheels on the printing presses are burning out. They need a place to dump money. They need to sell their debt. If they don't sell their debt, it comes home to roost, and you're going to see a major dollar devaluation, and of course that will lead to a market crash. Which is going to be devastating. Now, Abby Martin and Liz Wald kind of did something on RT, which RT News, and it's very obvious, like this is a Kremlin-supported network. It's only viewed in the United States. It's not viewed in Russia because, well, in Russia, I mean, if they were to actually bring up the issues that they bring up on RT America and RT News, they would clearly... people say, well, how come they're fighting for those people over there, but not for us? You know what I mean? What here they are talking about the non-government corruption, and then here we are, under Marxism and communism and all that junk. So Liz Wald's quitting. I kind of question that one a bit. I mean, here's a girl who says that she's had a hard time, and she can no longer report on this because it's a conflict of personal interest. Her family, she was a refugee from Hungary. Her family fled from Soviet oppression, but yet this lady gets a job at the most pro-Russian news station you could possibly get in North America. I find that one a little tricky. So she's probably got another job at like CNN or something like that. Probably won't see it for a few weeks, but that's what the guy from the X-22 report was saying, and it's like that makes total sense. Because even I'm like, okay, well, it's but it's all fake. Maybe she's legitimate. Maybe she's legitimate. So, I don't know this person personally, so I don't know. But the timing is weird because at the same time, Abby Martin's going along with speaking out against both Russia and the United States and social media, and she brings up a lot of really good points, even on Piers Morgan. Like she's many reporters self-censor, because they don't want to lose their jobs. And it's true. and the fact that only there's really six major tycoons that run, six media organizations that give everybody news. That's your major media organizations. And she goes, like, the narrative is controlled, And she goes, and it's, yes, she goes, we at RT obviously argue in favor of Russia, it's a pro-Russia. Every media outlet has their, even mine, like, my little blog thing, Spear. Of course, I have my biases too. And she goes, that's no problem. But she goes, the thing is that, the coverage on all sides is deplorable because it's, what about the Ukrainian people? And this is exactly what I've been saying all along. So she's back on her show and she says, look, she went on there and, I think she just set it up right from the beginning and she used a subversion tactic. Kind of scary. But she's a smart enough lady. She'd figure it out, Say, look, I'm going to go onto that show. And I'll just expose them and tell you, look, all they were cared about was demonizing Russia. Not even cared about, what about the people that are suffering? That's what happens when governments fight and they control, when the bankers control the media and they control, like, it's all one organization when you really look at it at the end of the day. Against, it's all oligarchs and NGOs and politicians and banksters fighting against each other. That's all it is. And us little ants get caught in the crossfire. So that's one thing. So with the extra 30,000 troops there, so NATO's going to have to respond at some point. That means more armored carriers. You've got the S-400 missile systems there. They've captured airfields. They captured the warships. The Ukrainian military is kind of split 50-50. It seems like the guys are jumping ship and going to Crimea. So that means Western Ukraine is pretty much going to be lawless. But the people in Ukraine seem to be fairly well behaved. What it really comes down to is the Kiev protesters. Where did this all get hijacked? And now it seems to be coming out exactly what I said, the scenarios, where there were snipers killing people on both sides. They were shooting officers and they were shooting protesters. Now, the thing is, what we have to factor in is there were two sets of snipers. There was the ones that everybody got to see at first, and everybody suspected to be Russian snipers in Ukrainian uniforms. I still say that's probably what it is. Or Ukrainian forces that were, favorable to Russia. Or the third, they were just legit, anti-terrorism units from Ukraine. And they were sniping out. Now, were they sniping out both sides? Because nobody could see exactly who shot who. You could see them shooting, but you don't see who shot who, right? But for me, that I was looking at it and said that was the part of the counter coup. That's where Russia took over. They said, oh, because why? Because the provocateurs. It's counterterrorism. It's counterintelligence. It's a higher level of a game. It's not about protesters. This is how the game's played. So we've seen the video footage of the protesters with the Mosin Nagant, not the kid with the pellet gun and the other guy with just the handgun. Those are just legitimate protesters. You can just tell just by the way they're, they don't know what they're doing. And the guy with the protester, well, the pellet gun's not going to kill too many people, It's going to hurt people. It can kill people at extremely blank range, but you're going to die tomorrow, you know what I mean? It's the guy with the Mosin Nagant. That's like the equivalent of a 308 here in, caliber-wise. It's a pretty powerful rifle. So what do you get? You got guys that are, in propaganda gear, okay, basically they got their helmets, they got the, and that's the thing, all these helmets, all these, not the makeshift stuff, but all the uniforms, there's a lot of these protesters running around with, like, really well-made flags, it's propaganda, it's propaganda. And, it's different when the source is open, but this is not an open source. Well, it is kind of an open source. It's just, we'll give them $5 billion. We'll prop up the protest, $5 billion behind the scenes. Russia sees this going on and say, well, we got to capture this coup. So this goes on for 4 months, okay? This goes on for 4 months. That means the Russians have enough time to infiltrate the protests. Just get it, you don't put the guy in there on uniform. You put him in there. He watches who does what. Okay, that's provocateur A. Click, take a picture. Okay, who is this guy? Oh, he's counterintelligence. He's from this country. He's from that country. He's a part of NATO. He's a part of this. Okay, he's on the list. This guy. We're not sure. Put him on the list anyway. This guy. Okay, put him on the list. So now they know. When the shooting starts, what are these the anti-terrorism special forces guys doing? There's one. Bang. Like I said, you got all your protesters in the crowd, okay? They're not firing into just the crowd. No. They're picking people off here. So what they do, they get the Berkut, the riot cops. This is exactly what they did. They get them. People come and challenge them. They retreat. Okay? and people beat them up a bit more. They have their water cannons, all that. They retreat again. Less people come forward. They retreat a third time. By that time, it's only the hardcore radical instigators, because the instigators have to be out front to get people, come on, come on, you know. Bang! That's what they're doing. As soon as these guys, okay, there's one I could see him clearly. Bang! Not sure about him, but bang. Yeah, sorry if it's the wrong guy, but bang. So you got innocent guys killed, but they've taken, now we've got control. Meanwhile, up on top of the I guess the building that was taken over, where they held police officers where the guy shot the girl with the AK, the protester. Okay, so he's a part, guaranteed he is a part of that, basically provocateur. There's people in intelligence there, so you got the guys up there. They look like legitimate protesters, or somebody forced the hand to because it's like, it's a monkey see, monkey do thing. It's like, well, if I do it, I'll just do it and see who follows me, and then from there you can manipulate them to do anything they want. Because that's how the game's played. So you got a guy up there, bang, Mosley got bang. He shoots a couple of cops, and then he shoots a couple of protesters. Why? This is to play one side off each other. It's what they do, But at that point, it doesn't matter. Russia's hijacked it. They've killed off the provocateurs. The provocateurs are the ones that get the wild dogs and tell them to attack this, attack that. You knock off those provocateurs, you just have wild dogs running everywhere. And they either get hold of the wild dogs or they put the wild dogs down. And right now, those wild dogs are just running around. They will be put down once Russia takes over completely. This may be a standoff that goes on for a long time. Now, Russia's done nuclear missile tests. It was the RS-24? No, SS-12 missiles that they were firing, not the SS-18. The SS-18 Satan that's the big one. But it was an SS-12 that they fired off. Again, all these military drills, it's the same thing when they do it when China puts out a drill. Well, NATO had a military drill scheduled for the same time. Oh, coincidence. Yeah, coincidence every time this happens? Yeah, sure. So anytime there's a hotspot in the world, you get, these incidents break out. It's kind of peculiar, you know what I'm saying? Well, it goes a little bit scarier than that, too, because now what you're dealing with is, the Russians are like, okay, well, we're just going to do the blitzkrieg. We're just going to, they've already set up shop, and again, and I'm not taking sides here. I might, maybe through these videos, this might sound like I'm being pro-Russia or something like that. I'm not pro-Russia. I'm not anti-Russia. In fact, I'm been saying it all along is that the Ukrainian people need to take back their own country. They need to take back their own country. Kick everybody out. Kick everybody out. You choose who you do business with. You choose. Maybe they will go with the Russians. Maybe they want to go with the Russians. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to kick them all out. It's and as far as a secession movement to join Russia, well, that's for the entire Ukraine to decide, not just one side of it. It doesn't work that way. So, like that's going to definitely breed it into a civil war. But it doesn't matter. Why? You've got 30,000 troops, And if they say 30, it's probably more like 60. The Russians do have a lot of troops. Plus, they have a lot of sympathizers there. So they're well mobilized, and they could support a proxy war for, even on their own border, they could support that proxy war for decades, And it would spread throughout the region. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, that's where we are today. The sanctions are not working. Coming in, Goof? Come on. There he did. Oh. But anyway, bottom line, even the so-called tough stance Canada's taken, it's really, it's okay. Yeah, we've taken a line and we're supporting it and stuff like that, but it's not going to make any difference over there in Ukraine. Now she comes to the door. So Canada can't really do much. Okay, sending 9 troops home. Okay, come on, you big fat dog. 92 pounds. There we go. So at the end of the day, it's like there's really nothing that we can do. And even with all the, Putin isn't blinking here. He's not scared of the sanctions. And you also have to understand, this is a game he's been preparing for a long time. The Soviets actually don't trust the West, And like I say, with all the other factors in there, I think where the key would be is if they put NATO missile systems, the Patriot missile systems, if those things come in, then you would see the shooting more. That or They'll probably have some of these F-15s do, like say start to fly into western Ukraine, get shot down by an S-400 missile system. There you go. You've got your provocation to war. Like again, think about it right on Kiev. That's what they provocated to get this side in, to get that side in. And the people have no choice. The people of Ukraine, I feel so bad for because they're caught between these two superpowers playing tug of war over who's going to steal the resources from Ukraine first. Very sad. So it's from here it's not hard to spark up. All NATO has to do is say, oh well, we were just flying in the western side of Ukraine and you guys shot us down. No, they'll provoke. They'll provoke, and they'll get a pilot or two killed, and then all NATO has to go in, and then next thing you know, many people die for no reason because governments are insane. That's it. All right, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. There we go. Okay, hi and welcome. And that's working. It's working. That's good enough. Okay, so 9 Russian soldiers have been sent home from Canada. Yeah, I said that. Yes, there are Russian soldiers in Canada. There's Chinese soldiers in Canada. There's all kinds of soldiers. There's Australian soldiers. There's Pakistani soldiers. There's American soldiers, British, you name it. Because we do, and we've been doing it for years. This is not conspiracy. This is something, you can find this on the military websites. What we do is training, cross-border training type of thing. Plus we do like, think of it like foreign exchange students. So whenever you do see the kind of conspiracy that there are Russian soldiers in this country, that country, excuse me, I just ate a big sandwich. Well, it's true, because it's true, right? Hey, goof, big dog head. And the reason why it's true is because we do different training now. Some of these training might involve, one was being a translator, teaching Canadian troops Russian, I guess, and others, 2 other Russians were learning French and English, and the rest of the Russians, I forget what they were learning. This is all from the CBCs where I got this. Yeah, you're a pest today. Big fat butt. This 92 pounds of dog here. Keep going. So anyway, bottom line is that they're being sent home over this Crimea situation in Ukraine, where the secessionist movement is they're going to have an election in like 10 days or something like that, on the 16th, I believe, and March. So in Russia right now, there's protests on people saying, yeah, Crimea should join Russia. Now Putin's still putting up his same kind of, oh, we're just letting these people self-determine, he's definitely forcing the hand. There's no question about that. Again, there's no good guys in this. The American EU, United Nations, and the IMF and all of them have really brought all this on, because the way they did regime change, my dog wants outside, so they did regime change, which made Putin pull out his master plan. They provoked a supervillain is what they did. And Putin, there's no way I'd want to ever live under that kind of a rule. It'd be a tough place to live, that's for sure. Although there's certain things I may agree with the man on principle on some stuff, but I definitely wouldn't want to live in the world of Vladimir Putin. Even being one of his friends would be dangerous. So with that said, Ukraine, again, this is all about, everything you see on the media is pretty much cut and dry. It's between the United States and the Russians is what this whole thing is about. And and if you're American watching this, you got to say, with the $17 trillion deficit, this is what Obama's focusing on, and now there's 30,000 troops. Here's the thing about all this troop stuff. Yes, there were a lot of troops in there that were already stationed there, and they became the defense forces. That's why they're not wearing badges. They're not wearing Ukrainian badges. They're not wearing Russian badges. Almost every standing military will have its identifier, somewhere on it.